We will try to be as quick as possible. The Secretary General took about 4 hours to present a very detailed report on the state of the organization. I shall ask him just to give the highlights of the report, not section by section, but also allow if there are any questions. The copies of the report are on this way. Yeah. I must hold you accountable. SC?
Thank you very much. I thought by now you would have received the reports. That's what I thought. By now you would have received the reports. To avoid a situation of
Representation.
those who have internal contacts getting a scoop unfairly and others get disadvantaged, and will ensure that you all get the reports so that you can read the report yourselves. We just presented a report on the state of the organization. I thought I would be saved of the responsibility to present it, but I will do it, summarize it, very brief. I thought I would get questions rather than presenting it again. But we started by reminding ourselves what the 53rd National Conference of the ANC reminded us to do. There are a few things that they were nudged to do as the NEC. The first one is to have deep roots and connections with the people. That is what we're called to do. And we're raising that issue as quite important as the lifeblood of the ANC. If the ANC is getting removed from the people, the less confidence people will have on the ANC. The more rooted we are among the people, the more confidence the people will pay. The second one is the question of the vibrant internal democracy and collective leadership.
Please speak up.
I go loud here, speak up. I go loud here,
Please bear with the SC.
My voice is gone, you see. Vibrant internal democracy is talking to two extremes. One, the first thing that is emphasized is acceptance of outcomes of internal democratic processes of the ANC by the members of the ANC. In that space, there are two extremes where a winning grouping become arrogant and marginalize and purge the group that didn't support it. The other extreme is a group that has lost confidence to continue mobilize destabilization of the structures of the ANC. The third area was the willingness and readiness of our members to make sacrifice in pursuit of the cause of the people as a whole. That is important, but a little closer to the ground. Sometimes when our people interact with communities, people are not happy until there's a national leader. But the reality of the matter is that people interact with people every day are local structures of the ANC, and we say those structures must sacrifice, serve the people, be selfless. Readiness to acknowledge weaknesses, where we can, we're criticized of that we're too open in acknowledging weaknesses. We must now focus on implementation. It will always be important to own up for the challenges and the problems facing our movement. We must adapt to changing conditions and rise to the occasion. And we must the ability to uphold and build unity in the cross-section of South Africans and progressive forces. That was the first thing. Then we went to explain what happened in the ANC since Mangaung. I'm not going to get into details there, except to show you, one, the membership. You see, the membership, we looked at our membership trend from the 52nd National Conference of the ANC up to date. In the 52nd National Conference in Polokwane, we had 620,000 members. in the Third National General Council in Durban, we had 649,000 members. In the 53rd National Conference, we had 1.2 million members. And we are now having 769,000 members. And the NGC had to receive an explanation of what happens. There are a few factors that lead to that trend. Is that if you look into that number is higher than any number before except the 53rd National Conference figures. The reason for that is what the president talked about as gatekeeping, where people don't urge people to renew membership. Number two is where there's no aggressive recruitment campaign unless it is in the run-up to conferences. And the reason that people work harder to conferences is that their numbers, as you saw the allocation of the delegation, which is proportionate. In conferences, it has a bigger meaning in the sense that proportionate representation translates into voting power. And people seem to be putting a lot of emphasis on voting power than building the organization. And we have looked into that and said, let's refocus on that issue post this General Council. And we reminded our members that it is not about Kwede Mantashe renewing his members. It doesn't end up there. In our constitution, a branch secretary is given the task to remind every member that your membership is expiring in a month's time. Please renew it. Many of the branch secretaries don't do that. It's an issue that we see as a challenge. Then we looked into cadreship development. Cadreship development, which must focus on ideological, political, academic, and ethical education. The aspect that we're doing relatively well. For example, the work of the political education committee, when you receive your report in your good time, you will see that there's a lot of work happening there. 9 of the provinces have political schools. 5 of the 9 provinces have political schools. That is Gauteng, KZN, Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, and Mpumalanga. Those 5 provinces have political schools. The 4 don't have. And what we say there is that, but there's been a lot of work happening at a national level and in the regions in terms of rolling out the political school. We criticize ourselves in the sense that we have not built the school. And many say the political school is not the building. It is the content of the political education. And we say, given, but the school, the actual building is important in terms of codifying your curriculum and your program. That's the issue. On the academic education, we're doing relatively well there. Actually, if you go to a number of provinces, many of them have arrangement with institutions of higher learning to send counselors, MPL and LPs to do programs with universities. We have a group of counselors who are doing master's degrees now in the ANC. But we say one thing that is short of is linking that work to the deployment. When we want to deploy and fill vacancies, instead of actually checking whether there are people who have gone through the academic process, who are cadres of the movement, who are active, we tend to advertise and just recruit a person on the basis of paper qualifications. We say we should tighten that. The Integrity Commission, we owned up for the one, acknowledge that we have established the Integrity Commission. Owned up to the fact that we have not implemented many of the recommendations. We have asked the General Council to accept that the Integrity Commission should be given a task to take decisions and bounce them with the officials, so that if the Integrity Commission says, because of what you are doing, the integrity and the image of the organization is dented, step aside, there must be no long process to effect that decision. We're hoping that we'll get that endorsed by the General Council. Then we went to the detailed work of the subcommittees. Part of that is in the discussion document that we circulated. But in the organizational report, we are counting of what has happened in what areas of work. And we summarize the state of the provinces. Briefly, that is what we did in 4 hours.
Thank you very much, SG. Shall we take quick questions? I'm likely just to take one round of questions. Karim, first. Carol Patel. Karim.
Excuse me for not standing up. I want to ask a question about the Integrity Commission and the conundrum that the party has about members not stepping down when they're charged with a serious crime. In 2005, the party at the NGC, the party said that President Jacob Zuma should not, or Deputy President Jacob Zuma, at the time, he was charged with corruption and he did not, or the NGC said he should not step down. He should remain Deputy President. Do you think that was a problem? Do you think that maybe contributed to the problems you have now with that same principle?
Carol?
Carol Payne from Business Day. Ms. Montash, on the Integrity Commission, are you saying, what sort of decisions would it take? Are you saying the agency must you want an endorsement? Would it take decision for action or just decision for the person to step aside?
So that you ask a question. We said now the Integrity Commission make recommendations.
Right.
Okay, to other structures of the ANC. What we are saying is that it should not make recommendations. It should take decisions.
About action against somebody?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, then my second question is, one of the issues at this conference is the problem of factionalism, and the President spoke about it, and I'm sure you spoke about it in your report. What can the ANC do? What recommendations, what steps can you put in place to deal with this that you haven't already said before you'll do, and which kind of which haven't sort of dealt with the problem? So have you got any fresh ideas on how to get sort of tougher on factionalism?
Sophie?
On the international relations, Dr. Mantashe, the issue of the International Criminal Court, what is the position of the ANC leadership, but maybe perhaps the proposal that was put before the council, so that maybe there can be a way forward in terms of how South Africa should handle this matter going forward?
Aldrin Simpier from SABC TV News. Just on the reason why the number of ANC members has dropped, have you guys looked in perhaps why some members of the ANC has left the ANC, like, sort of an exit interview to say these are some of the reasons why some ANC members have left the party?
We take the last one in this round. Kakamini?
Hi, SG. I just want to find out, President Jacob Zuma touched on the issue of gatekeepers, and you've also spoken about it a little bit just now. We just want to understand, he mentioned the fact that gatekeeping had an impact on membership numbers. We understand that as the members of the Northwest ANC Youth League laid a complaint against an official in your office who they claim was involved, was meddling. But that's my question. That's my question, sir.
My office. Ask your question.
My question, sir, is that we understand that an official in your office was allegedly involved in meddling in the auditing process of branches. We want to know from you the extent of the problem, first of all, and secondly, what is being done about it. And doesn't this...
The Northwest.
I'm saying that the Northwest ANC Youth League raised this as an issue. So we want to know what is being done about this problem, and is this not adding to the problem of gatekeeping and membership decline as you mentioned?
Can you take those few?
Okay. You see, Karen, in analysis, there's something called periodization of analysis. That means you analyze a period, you don't go beyond it. That is what your question reflects. What you are not saying about 2005 is that when Zuma was charged and actually relieved of his duties, let me use the same words, he offered to step down in all positions, including being an MP. I think you should start from there. And he did that. He offered to step down from deputy president of the ANC. He offered to say, I will sit aside and do nothing until my case are finalized. If you put that context, then your question will take a different complexion. That it is not the reinstatement of President Zuma by the NGC in 2005 that would be a problem today. Because that reinstatement by the NGC reinstated a person who stepped aside on the basis of charges and allegations. Okay. Now therefore it cannot be the main issue. The issue that we should be dealing with now, which talks to the Integrity Commission work, is that what we are saying is that the Integrity Commission is not about guilt or not guilt. Okay. It's not about legal cases. It's not about disciplinary cases. It's about the image and integrity of the ANC. And the question that is posed on me when I have these charges is, what is the impact of your charges, serious allegation against you, on the standing of the movement in society? That is the essence. And the Integrity Commission, therefore, doesn't find people guilty or not guilty. All it finds is that, listen, man, your ongoing case does impact negatively on the image and standing of the ANC in society. But because it is a recommendation, there was an element of expecting individual members of the ANC, to appeal to their conscience and step aside. All that is done now is to give the Integrity Commission some teeth. That it must not just say, please consider stepping aside, or can the NEC do something about this. It must be able to say, the gravity and the impact of your case on the image of the ANC is too huge, you must then step aside. And that should be a decision, and therefore I must not question, I must step aside as long as that case is continuing. It must be changing in the conditions and the circumstance factors that may make me come out of that stepping aside. So that is the issue. So your question, I'm giving it the direction we're taking, as opposed to following a deputy president who refused to step aside. No, that's not the issue. The deputy president did step aside, and the NGC did reinstate him. If he didn't step aside, the NGC in 2005 would not have gone into trouble of reinstating him. The second one, factionalism. What can be done that has not been done? Let me tell you, the question of factionalism, Carol, is that factionalism is a political problem. It's not a natural science problem. You will not mix water and syrup and produce a remedy to factionalism. It will not work that way.
Cheers.
It doesn't work that way. Factionalism is something that will be raised all the time. It is part of any political system, actually. That's why when I talk about the factionalism in the ANC, I always remind people that the reason that President Kumete was removed in 2030 was factional activity, because he came back from Russia and Belgium, and having seen socialism, said he has seen the New Jerusalem. And conservative factions in the ANC get mobilized and removed him. Okay, that's the reality of the matter. And that's why if you look into the late 50s, Youth League first and then into the ANC, African nationalists thought that this thing of the ANC working close with communists and all that is diluting Pan-Africanist outlook of the ANC. And the one secretary who have written a lot about factionalism will be Tumanokwe, because it was reality at the time, hence the walking away of the Lion of the North, Umadzunya, a precursor to the formation of the Pan-Africanist Congress. Okay, so factionalism goes on with the organization, and all we are doing today is to raise it, to say, listen, this thing is a cancer, it can kill the organization. If it overwhelms the organization, it can weaken and kill the organization. That's the essence. And that is the challenge facing any political party, it doesn't matter which one. Any political party will confront that faction. All it guards against that. Factions are there. You see, this morning, one member of the ANC phoned me and said, you must talk about faction X, calls it by name. And I say to him, no, there's not only one faction. Don't pretend as if there's only one faction. There are many. You are in another faction yourself. Now, Suguti, because you are fighting a particular battle and that faction overpowered you, then you create a picture that that is the only faction. You are in a faction yourself. The most important thing is that the organization must be able to have capacity to absorb the pains out of factionalism and remain the mainstay and strong enough to keep on rolling despite factions. So we're not going to come up with a solution that is a remedy to factions. It can't be. The remedy to faction is a strong organization. ICC proposal, we reported that we had a discussion on the ICC. Our recommendation is that the South African government must review its membership. It's a long, complex exercise, but it must start that process. And our view is that the ICC is an imperialist court, is biased against the poor countries. It is an instrument in the hands of non-members. Many of these big countries are not members. The US is not a signatory. Actually, in the Security Council, of the 5 countries with veto powers, 3 are not signatories. In the BRICS countries, 3 are not signatories. So the point that we were making there is that please review that thing. That thing is not working in the interest of the continent. We rather strengthen the human rights court in the continent. Yeah. Okay. Now, number drop, some have left the party. Yes, that is another factor. It's but one of the many factors. One of them that we can assure you is that when people go and leave the ANC, as we saw after 2008, membership grew. Okay. So it's not a question of whether people go, either leave, either come. Actually, other who left migrate back. From various parties migrate back. We receive a person from another party almost every day. But the reality of the matter is that whether our structures are amenable to recruiting and retaining membership, do they renew a membership that lapses? Or do they wait for the 3 months and say, in a conference when you want to go, say you are not a member, your membership has lapsed, and not read the part that says, have you reminded that member that membership is about to lapse? And our view is that factionalism and gatekeeping is just an element of factionalism in that you select membership in terms of who will give me support. You try to keep out as many of those. For example, we talked about auditing, and people said auditing, how you do remedy auditing. For example, if you take auditing, auditors cannot change the outcome of audit. Okay. Branch secretaries do change outcomes of audit because auditors come and pull up branch files and the branch secretary gives that branch file, what we are beginning to discover is that when they want to exclude Zizi, we just pull out his form out of the branch file. Then Zizi is not in the audited membership of the ANC, because as a branch secretary, I've pulled out his membership. That's a form, that's it. So,
Good standing. And yet I'm a member in good
and yet he's a member in good standing. So the gatekeeping is more complex than just a member of auditing meddling with files. The reality of the matter, the person who is actually accused of meddling with auditing even today left auditing long time ago. Okay, we've removed him from there because people say this person is meddling with auditing. We said, okay, shift from auditing. But still, people still accuse him of meddling with the audit processes, because when you have problems, you want to find a scapegoat for that problem. So that would apply to the Northwest. Northwest is more complex than what you are saying. Northwest is not having problem because some auditor from that office has meddled with the files. Actually, they fight as if there is no tomorrow. It's the only province even here that has problems, that there are people who come as delegates, who are not delegates, just jump into comes and come and say, yeah, we should be in that NGC because I think those delegates take my place. It's only the Northwest that does that. No other province has that problem.
Wait. Can you take the last round? I need to relieve the SG. His voice is getting... Matume 1, 2, your last 3. Where? Can't see.
One.
Okay. 5.
That's it.
Kala when I dispatch. Now that I see you here.
No, but I've seen a photograph of yourself meditating during the president's speech. What is happening?
Come again.
It seems you were in deep thought during the president's speech, that you closed your eyes for quite a long time.
I was not.
But most importantly, it seems you've made some comments in your report, page 22. It seems you are nervous ahead of the local government elections, but falling below the 60% mark. Could you please expand?
Matume?
Yeah. The SG also raises the, concerns about the DA coming into the ANC base. Would you say which areas are you concerned about? And the last question is, you explained that the then deputy president offered to step aside, but the NGC decided that he should remain in the party. But I thought that you were dealing with the perception, that is the public perception, not the internal perception. So that is different. So if every member of or every leader offers to step aside and the organization says no, but we need you inside, what happens to the public perception?
In your report, you outline where your decline took place. And I think in the majority of those, I think 7 provinces,
No. Let's give you some numbers. We got a growth in 4 coastal provinces and a decline in 5 inland provinces. That is factual.
in the majority of the provinces where your decline was, the loss was due to the EFF gain. No? Or,
No, maybe ask
Okay.
your question.
Ask your
So
question.
the question is, you certainly have an issue with your decline of votes, and you've stated today that you need to meet that reality for the forthcoming elections. How do you intend to do that? The other question is, the President today spoke about votes being bought. Yourself being a long-standing critique of BEE, is there a relationship in your mind between the rise of the the wealthy black members inside your organisation and the buying of votes?
Sorry, from SABC News. As you just you mentioned that the state of the provinces was also touched on, and you know, I just wanted to find out which provinces, in terms of membership and gatekeeping, based on factionalism and other factors, are doing worse than others. Do you have a list of performances or a scale in terms of which are the worst performers and why?
The last one, Ashanti.
Thanks. Shanti from Independent Media. Just to ask then, since Northwest was used as the example here, SG, and by yourself as well, you just said to us that Northwest is the only province, or one of the provinces where, I think you said the only province where you have to tell members not to come to Congress. They come with the thing and they say they are delegates.
I'm this NGC.
At this NGC. So what I'm asking is, does that mean, what does that mean for the statements on gatekeeping and accessibility of national to provincial or regional? Why is it in Northwest specifically that a national conference, specifically in Northwest, why are those members now coming to a national conference? Can you tell us about this specific national general conference?
Thank you very much. The last question is
nervous about falling below 60%. You see, there's a difference between nervousness and analysis. Okay. That you do an analysis doesn't mean that you are nervous. It means that you are looking into the trends. Analysis is an element of extrapolating emerging trends into the future. You look into, if things remain the same, go the same trend, this is what will happen. To get my point? When you do that, it doesn't mean you are nervous. But you're saying to the organization, if this trend is not arrested, this is what will be the next step. This is what we're doing in the report, because that's why when we put our numbers in the report, we put the numbers from, we compare 2009 and 2014. Okay. We've cut out local government elections. We say the 2009 marked a decline. Then the 2014 we had another 3.25% decline. And therefore, if that trend continues, we may fall below 60%. If you read that report carefully, you don't just look into the numbers. You will also look into what we're highlighting, that 20 years in power as a liberation movement globally, there is normally a decline in the performance of liberation movement after 20 years. That is the analysis that we're doing. So if you read that analysis in details, you will see that it is not a function of nervousness. It's a question of doing a detailed analysis of what you should be interacting with. So I want to link that to the question of two questions. DA in coming to our base, you do make that analysis. I don't know why do journalists think that when your base is invaded, you should sleep like a small baby. It can only be a journalist who think that way. Yeah, it can only be a journalist who think that way. That, okay, we see signs that there are elements of people attracted to the DA. It's peculiar for people to think of a party. Now, if you look at the Collar Barnett case, which believes that it was better under apartheid, and you have people who are attracted to that party, it's peculiar. You should pay attention. What could be that attract people to a party that think that we should go back to apartheid, and they go there. And And if you say we should not notice that, then you are sending us to holiday, really. We should notice it. Where are the areas? What are the issues? What was the issue used in the campaign? Those are the details we go to when we do that analysis. And as a result of that, what should be our response? Okay? And half the time, that response will not be in the public document. That is what we will actually develop on our own in the commissions and so forth. That document will be less public on what to respond, because if you circulate your response to that situation, you are actually doing the most unfortunate part. You are disarming yourself, you are giving your arms to your enemy. It doesn't work that way. And that goes to the question of the decline being where EFF established itself. Not really. You see, I know some people got excited when the Red Berets appeared. They think that there's a revolution now. Now, the reality of the matter is, in 2008 when COPE came, it took a bigger chunk than the EFF. People don't want to remember that. They had 37 seats in parliament. EFF has 25. We had to look into the impact of COPE, corrode that base. In the next election, COPE had 3 in parliament. Okay. And when COPE returned to parliament with 3 parliamentarians, EFF went to parliament with 25 parliamentarians. We're not all from the ANC, by the way. I can give you names. There are quite a number of prominent members of EFF who are not from the ANC, including the fired one now, Omqidam, and them, whenever I'm members of the ANC. So, but we do pay attention to the fact that EFF has established itself in Province X, Area X, and even in the provinces, we find that they establish themselves in specific areas, and we do look into those areas. In Gauteng, the only area where they can boast of having established themselves visibly would be Tembisa. In others, it's triples and traps in other areas. So we have that analysis of those issues. And we analyze them like any other political party because we're competing with all of them. That is the issue. The buying of votes, is it a function of the BEE? I would imagine that some of the people who would sponsor that would not be BEE beneficiaries. It would be established companies. Buying of votes is a function of corporate capture, where corporate capture individual politicians and actually bankroll them and facilitate their popularity and therefore buy votes. There's no color. It's not just a function of BEE, it's a function of capital. That's how capital works. Capital will bankroll you and ensure that it has interests that are protected in a particular area. The worry with the vote buying, though, is not the individual member who is given 2,000 rand to vote. It is the outcome of that conference on whether we have a genuine leadership or are we having a proxy leadership, which is a leadership of proxies of various interests. That is the issue that we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with the small man and the small woman who is given 2,000 rand and she votes and given that. That's not the issue. The issue, what the outcome is constituted of. Is it a collection of business interests when we meet? Have we gone that far? Or are we seeing it as a threat that is possible into the future? That is the issue. The external perception. We're dealing with external. We're not only dealing with special perception. You can't deal with perception, Matuma, without applying your minds to facts. You can only demystify perception by providing facts. You only undo perception by digging truth from facts. Do you get my point? That's the way of dealing with perceptions. and providing that information. If you don't give information that counter what helps the development of a perception, you are doing a disservice to yourself. So it is correct for us to correct the fact that it is not a question of a Zuma who refused to step aside. Zuma was fired and he stepped aside. It is the NGC that reinstated him because it saw injustice meted on him. So it can't be the same as people refusing to step aside. He did step aside. And therefore that is the factual situation. It's not a perceptive situation. It's a real situation. So what would you do? It's not only external perception, it's also dealing with issues in the organization itself. Otherwise, if we're to deal with external perceptions only, we are in a wrong profession to run a political party. We should be in some spin doctoring company somewhere, I'm reading a lot of that now on the Don Nixon book on selling apartheid. You can see that is exactly real spin doctoring, where you hire companies to spin out your message, and they go and spin your message all over. Then you are dealing with external perception. You are not dealing with reality. You are not running an organization. Running an organization is providing information for members first, for the public next. Lastly, I must admit that I didn't understand your question of Northwest members come here. Why should they come here?
Why Northwest?
No, what I'm asking is, in the context of what the organizational report says about gatekeeping, what is them coming directly to a national conference? What does it say about gatekeeping?
It doesn't talk about gatekeeping. It talks about factional battles in the Northwest. That's what it talks about. It talks about factional battles in the Northwest. That's what it talks about.
Thank you very much, SG. The report, copies of the report, the copies are outside. There was a question on the state of provinces. In the report.
Oh. Then the report.
It's in the report, in the copy that is outside.
You will see, when you go to the provinces, you will see that when we deal with the membership, which is under the NEC, you will get the numbers. And if you tell you this province at this point was here, it went here, it is here now. And when you go to the provinces, then we summarize whether that province is stable. When we use, for example, the term relative stability, you will see when we summarize the situation in the regions, we'll give you the context of using the term relative stability.
Thank you. Thanks very much, SG. Yeah, and there's a financial report and the balance of forces. After balance of forces, Nati will come back.
There will be no media briefing on finances.
No, not on finances. Yes. Nati will still come here tonight. So it's a long evening.
Will they also be reported after the financial report?
No.
No, they won't.
We have no intention of buying any media houses. We don't want to buy any media house. Yes. Can we read?
When are we supposed to come back? When are we supposed to come back?
Yeah, hello. Wait. Ouch. Right.
Can you read the report first before you make wrong assumptions?